Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Matter of Fact Science. It's been a little bit since we've done these. It's always hard to find a scientist who is both entertaining and interested in meeting the public like you do. And we've got a good one, I think, today. Natalia, pleased to meet you.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
So
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I'm looking at your background and I'm curious about all the enclosures. I'll ask in a minute, but that looks fantastic.
Thank you. And you look at behind my wife there. She's in a different room in the same house, and you can see the same kind of thing going on with her. We've got a
Yep.
few
Yep.
rooms of our house that look like this. We have 75 snakes.
Yes. Yes. Is this where they have to get the snakes for the plane? Are you the guy when they say I know a guy? You're the snake guy.
Yeah, yeah. And so my wife was she got it into her head that she wanted to start breeding them. And
Oh,
so
okay.
what she's got behind her is mostly ball pythons and stuff like that, different morphs, it's a specialty thing. So if you get these collection of genes and you mix it with this other one that has these collection of genes and you say the magic words and roll the dice, then you just might get this other thing. That's the way I characterize it anyway.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do they work for scale? Ha.
I don't
That's when we
But
need a little snare drum. Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
so Natalia, I have seen you on Star Talk with Neil deGrasse, and I've seen a couple of your stand up routines, which it's kind of an interesting mix. How you promote science through comedy. That's kind of amusing. I'm more interested in the scientific aspect. I know that
Mhm.
one of the comments that you have frequently made is that people tell you that you don't look like a scientist, but
Yes.
as you are a primatologist, you kind of do look like primatologist to me because I know,
Yeah.
Gutsick Gibbon has a huge channel. She's a paleoprimatologist, and then of course
Mhm.
there was the- I can't remember the woman that worked with the gorillas,
There's
and
Diane
and then
Fossey, yeah, and Jane
that's
Goodall
it,
and
and
Brute
Jane Goodall, of
Albatross,
course,
Leaky's
exactly.
Angels. Yeah. Yeah, and I Leaky, it's no, you make a great point. As a primatologist, it is a very female-dominated field. We also have a lot of queer scientists in our field as well. So it is kind of a diverse field that way. And in fact, Louis Leakey, when he decided that he wanted, Louis Leakey is a very famous paleoanthropologist. His wife is the one that discovered Paranthropus boisei. I have a little 3D skull right here, print up of Paranthropus boisei. But the Leakey family is known for discovering multiple hominin species, but he wanted to study the great apes. And so he sent out 3 women, and he chose women because he thought they'd be more patient, because it takes a lot of patience, diligence, and, kind of just being very creative in how you can habituate or get primates used to human presence. And so he did a good thing by sending out, Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall, who studied chimps, Diane Fossey, mountain gorillas, and then Brute did orangutans. And so, they did they did the Lord's work, if there is such a thing. But by learning about our closest genetic relatives, ones that have not really been aptly studied until then.
So now your area of fascination happens to be spider monkeys. Why is that?
Well, it all starts off usually with a happy accident. I used to have recurring King Kong nightmares, and my first love was gorillas. In fact, my first lucid dream was actually shrinking King Kong down from a giant looming gorilla to an orangutan. And if for those folks that are old enough to remember, I was in Ricky Schroeder's The Silver Spoon's house when it happened, and I heard these footsteps. And by the time I opened the front door, he was no longer King Kong. He was just this orangutan, and he gave me a hug. And from then on, I was like, I am in love. And when I was in my undergrad, I did my honors thesis on Grauer's gorillas, a subspecies of gorilla, and how coltan mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo was wreaking havoc on their habitat, but also leading to bushmeat hunting. And so that's where I was going to do my work. I was going to do my research there. But in 2008, unfortunately, Goma, the city I would have flown into in DRC, basically was under siege and was going through a lot of socio-political upheaval. So Cal State Northridge, where I finished my undergrad, actually acquired an amazing primatologist, Dr. Christina Campbell, who studied spider monkeys on Barrow, Colorado Island. In the Panama Canal, like right smack dab in Lake Gatun in the Panama Canal. And she said, well, and I wanted to stick with conservation. I was like, I'll work with you, but I really want to do conservation. And she said, as a matter of fact, I just got reached out to by an organization on the Azuero Peninsula in Panama, and they need somebody to help conduct a survey, a census really, of the Azuero spider monkey, which was a critically endangered subspecies. So I pivoted, kind of like how I did when I was in high school and I wasn't doing so great in math and science. And I thought, I can't be a scientist. I guess I'll do the next best thing, which is comedy. I pivoted in this particular point in my life. And I said, you know what, I'll shelve mountain gorillas or Grauer's gorillas, which was the species that I really wanted to study. And I'll study spiders. And I'm really glad I did. Spider monkeys are incredibly charismatic, super kooky, very fast. I was in the best shape of my life when I was studying spider monkeys, because you're just running uphill, downhill. I called myself the Jack Tripper of primatology because I did a lot of tripping, not the drug kind, but the literal falling on my ass every which way. So, yeah, that's what I did, and it was a heck of a time, and I fell in love with the area as well. I was hoping to actually buy property down in Panama where I had done field work to start a field station, because people actually are in the process of doing so. So my situation fell through, but there's another organization that I might be working with to help, create a field station, so more students can go down there and students in Panama can work there.
I know how you feel. I went on the expedition in South Africa and thought this is amazing. I would love to be able to spend more time here, or at least come back. You
Yeah.
know, you said that you were frustrated or discouraged from becoming a scientist. I was as well. I mean, I was discouraged from like everything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, people telling me that it was too much hard work, or I wasn't going to be able to manage it, or what, that wasn't good enough, smart enough, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I ignored the discouraging commentary from like my own family, oddly enough, who just, I don't know, they didn't want me to succeed at anything, told
Uh,
me that I was never going to succeed at anything, and that it didn't matter what I did. But okay, I feel like I have surpassed all of my critics, which, you know,
yes.
to my own family in this case. How did you make you went into the comedy thing, and then you there was a comment that you made that you had been hit by your own truck, and I don't
Yes.
maybe don't necessarily want to know if that's too personal what that means, because I can't figure it out. But I would like to know about this transition to getting into science, and more importantly for me, how you got into science communication.
Yeah. So the truck thing, that I don't mind bringing it up, because I do think it's everybody kind of needs a kick in the ass to get them in gear. Everybody, I think there's a moment we have those sort of like pivotal moments that are really life changing, And for me, it was getting hit by a '94 Ford Ranger on the shoulder of the freeway as a pedestrian. But yeah, I was working. I had dropped out. I went to college for 1 year at UC Irvine as a theater major, and I was dealing with a lot of family emergency type stuff. It was a lot of stuff was going on. I went to 3 funerals my freshman year of or spring break freshman year of college. And at the time I was just like, this is what life is. I didn't think anything was strange about it, but I definitely didn't feel quite like I was fitting in. And I dropped out of college. I moved to Venice Beach. I got a little apartment off the, boardwalk for $400 a month. I had a guy in a ski mask come to my door, stalkers, it, all the things that happened in Venice Beach that made it so charming back in the late '90s. And I was working in the film industry, doing extra work, stand-in work, auditioning here and there, doing production, set dressing, and PA work. But I really felt like there was an emptiness, like I wasn't really pushing the acting career, and feeling like you mentioned that insecurity of, or when people said you couldn't do something, feeling that, like, letting it kind of seep in and doubting my own abilities. And I knew I was talented. I knew I could do it, but I was scared, and it's tough sometimes, really just living life balls to the wall, because I think failure can be really daunting. But even worse than failure, I think, is the fear of success and then maintaining that success too. Like, what if you do good this one time and then you're held to a bar that you can't necessarily meet every time? You're just like, ah, crap. Now I'm really, I'm locked in. I got to keep doing this. I got to keep wowing and razzle dazzle the crew. And but
I wouldn't
anyways,
want to
while
be
I was
stuck as a one-hit wonder.
right, exactly. Fun side note, I actually make art with my boobs, and I do make one tit wonders. Just a fun little side note. I know
You
it's
also
terrible.
did get you. I mean, it wasn't you. You sounded like
Fix
you said you were auditioning and you were trying to do your acting, but I mean, it's not like it's not like you failed at that. I mean, you did get in a number of shows and such, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I did little bit parts here and there. And funny enough, I got, on the Drew Carey show. I was an extra in a stand-in, but they gave me little bit parts. And on mine, Everybody Loves Raymond, it's funny, I was just a featured extra on that show, but I played Ray's girlfriend in a flashback. And I mean, people out of the blue, like my bank teller was like, "Hey, were you on Everybody Loves Raymond?" I'm 19 at the time. My hair isn't and by the way, Central Casting put out the note. We want a really dorky looking girl that looks straight out of the 1970s. And of course, they fished me out of the pond, and I was perfect. But yeah, I'd get these little roles, and I actually got in an improv troupe and when I was 25, and was really excited about that. And then but I was kind of, like I said, I was living this weird life where I was working as a stand-in on a show called Cold Case. And I would talk to people about anthropology all the time because I'd taken some anthro classes, a smattering of them at a junior college, which I'm a big fan of junior college, by the way. I think when people crap on them, they're really missing the mark because junior
Now,
college.
are we saying the same thing as community college?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Community college. Yes. Junior college.
Yeah.
Community
Let me
college.
just throw something else, throw
Yeah.
something out about that. I took a class in community college that cost me $150. I took the exact same class at the University of Texas, cost me 10 times as much, $1,500. So
Why? I mean, and was it better? I mean, like, did you feel like the instruction was any, 10 times as
no,
better? Right?
no, it wasn't. In fact, the as you put it, the junior college, the professor there was celebrated. I
Yeah.
mean, you had to sign up for her class within the first day that it became open because her class is always filled up immediately.
Which
Now,
college was
the guy,
this?
well,
Sorry.
this was Richland. Oh, excuse me, I can't remember the name. I want to say Richland College, but anyway, it's a local
Yeah.
Dallas community college. And then there was the University of Texas, and the professor there was celebrated kind of too, but it was a very different environment where she's there to make everybody a success.
Sure.
He is the success, and we're also supposed to be in awe of him.
Right? Fawning over
So
his
that
greatness.
300 people in a classroom, and it's an auditorium, and he's
Yeah.
giving a presentation, so he's the celebrity, and you don't get that personal interaction, and
No.
whereas she was working with me, I was a struggling student trying to get. I was working full time. I was a single parent at the time, and she was helping me get through all of this. And then when
Wow.
so I get the part one is in her course, and then the part two is in the other college, and I'm like, 10 times as much.
Stupid. It's insane.
Yeah.
I went to SMC in Santa Monica College. I think it was $11 a unit. And I took a biological anthropology class from Professor Denman. And it was fall of 2001. So 9/11 happened during that semester. The whole world changed during that semester. And he opened my eyes up to a whole world, and he was fantastic. $11 a unit. This guy, blew my mind. And I remember studying for tests, and I'm some of the shows that I'm working on are kind of looking at explaining, 4.5 billion years of history, because like we would have to basically know the history of the world from beginning to end. And it was fascinating to me. I mean, I loved History of the World Part 1, Mel Brooks, because he's one of my favorites. But this was like, wait a minute, with the dinosaurs going extinct, I actually did a speech in a speech class about it because it was so fascinating to me how they determined an asteroid hit the Earth, what actually happened. I just love extinction events. I don't love them
Have
enough
you ever
to
been
have
to
them.
Chichen Itza?
I have. Yeah.
It's
I
kind of
went in
fascinating to
1997.
see it's kind of fascinating to see and swim in the physical evidence of that impact.
Right?
The cenotes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the caves, and in Mexico.
When did you guys
And just
go?
to see the depiction on a map of all the cenotes and see that they are in a ring, that they are actually part of this impact crater, all of these things, and then to see all of the other what I don't know what kind of technology they're using to make these images, but you can see the concentric rings of this. Well, you'd never be able to see with your own eyes. You're never able to see this crater, but you
Right.
can see it from satellite imagery using the certain enhancement or whatever, and boom, it's there. So that was
Yeah.
very impressive.
Oh no, it's fascinating. I went in 1997 when I first graduated from high school, so I didn't even know the gravity of this event of going there. It wasn't until I was a little bit older that I was like, oh my god, I actually was there. Oh, and we didn't get to swim in the cenotes, unfortunately. It was a kind of a quicker trip, but still, I went to Koba and also Tulum, way before it became super touristy. It was much more subdued at that point, but I was in awe and I loved archaeology, but then realizing also what had happened there 66 million years ago, it adds a whole nother level of Jesus Christ, what did I just see? This is freaking amazing.
It's kind of interesting also that the people who live there were not, until very recently, they were not aware that they were the place where the world ended.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is like the world didn't necessarily end. It just transformed. And like, that's what I love is it became like the things that survived that extinction event, like the little mammals and then it just gave rise to the age of the mammals. I mean, it's wild. That's why I always say, like, when we talk about conservation and, oh, the world's going to end and we got to save the earth, save the planet. I'm like, the planet's going to be okay. The
We're
species
not going to
on
fare
it,
so well.
we're not going to be okay, but we've been around for 300,000 years, a drop in the geological time bucket. Like, what are we, bitching and moaning about, like, oh, the earth is
It'll
going to just.
that an extinction now maybe would drive the evolution of rats and cockroaches.
Yeah.
Things that are really small and really scrappy.
Yeah.
And all the raccoons that live in our cities would be suddenly thinking, we can walk bipedally and we have hands. We've
Yep.
got all this cool stuff.
That's what it was like during the pandemic and everybody was indoors in quarantine
Yep.
and all the birds were outside singing like by themselves and just enjoying their time alone without people everywhere.
It would
Yeah.
be nice
No,
to see nature reclaim cities. I would love to see what that looks like.
I love, I mean, Central Park was getting coyotes. I mean, I lived in New York City. I lived in Red Hook, Brooklyn when COVID first started. I just started a teaching position at Lehman College in the Bronx, and my students they knew. It was wild. They all were asking. The class started January, I think 29th or something, and they were asking questions from day one because they heard murmurs. And so I did an emerging disease lecture on February 28th, 2020. 2 weeks before the world shut down, which was also coincidentally my 41st birthday. Everyone was like, what are we going to do for your birthday? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure nothing. I'm pretty sure we're going to sit still. But seeing all the animals come out and the changes of, migration and not having to, deal with like the noise pollution, the light pollution as much, it really is interesting to see how animals, how everything is all connected and how the environment is very much impacted by us and how we are impacted by it. And I think COVID was a great example. But yeah, I don't even know. We went on I'm a tangential creature. But yeah, I eventually got into, science, got back to science after taking that wonderful anthro class. I didn't know what the heck to do with it, and then I got hit by a truck on the shoulder of a freeway in Los Angeles. I rear-ended it's one of those freak accidents where I was driving and there's a video. I did a Story Collider show about this where it's a storytelling show. In fact, you both should do it. It's a Story Collider is a organization where all the stories, it's a storytelling collective like The Moth, but all the stories have an element of science to them. So you would be perfect. Amazing. I'm on the board. That's why I'm pitching us right now, but I think you should do it because it's really fun. It's a great way to tell your story. Yeah.
I think I've heard of it before.
I'll send you more information, but everyone check it out. They have a great podcast too with just scientists telling their stories. And yeah, so I was driving on the freeway. The last thing I said to my boyfriend as I was leaving his house was, I'm not wearing any underwear. And I climbed into my pickup truck and I drove off. Traffic slowed on the 101. I ended up rear-ending somebody in front of me. They pulled over onto the shoulder. Because the next exit was another freeway, I just pulled over behind them because I didn't want them to think it was a hit and run, even though I knew it was very dangerous. They got out of their truck. I got out of, they had a car. I got out of mine. And essentially, I asked them, I was crying. I said, can we get off the freeway? And they didn't speak English. They were in town from Japan on business. So again, everything was pointing to this is not going to be a good outcome. And so while I was trying to get my insurance information straight, I was standing between their car and my pickup truck, and a woman who happened to have balloons in her car and opened the sunroof came up on the shoulder about 65 miles per hour and hit my truck. And then my truck hit me and then pinned me. And then I got tossed onto the off ramp and landed on my head, which explains a lot. But that honestly I was messed up. I lost a ton of blood. I had to learn how to walk again. I almost lost my leg a few times. I learned a lot about staph infections. That was fascinating. But it was the catalyst of what the hell are you doing with your life? You don't want to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a stand-in on a TV show, but that was not what I wanted to do. And that was what got me to go back to school and really focus on science. And then I fell back in love with primates. So that was kind of the weird trajectory. But like you said, I mean, my family was supportive, but of course, it's a lot when you come out of something like that and you're like, you know what, I love this whole acting thing, but I think monkeys are where it's at. They're like, how hard were you hit? What's going on?
My background is in science writing, and that's an interesting hook for how to start a story. I'm not wearing any underwear.
Yeah.
And then I got hit by a truck.
And then
I studied monkeys.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, where did you start science writing? Sorry.
Oh, I've been science writing for years, and I have a master's degree in it. So
that's awesome.
The interesting thing is that when we met online, we met at christianforums.com, and we were arguing from either side of the creation evolution debate.
No way.
Yeah. On a Christian website.
This is amazing. Wait, go on. I want to hear more.
I was a creationist, and he was there in the Creation Evolution Forum back when everybody talked in forums, and he was arguing with the creationists there, and their stubborn inability to accept anything that's right staring them in the face kind of helped me to understand that evolution wasn't if it's true, it's true. And if there's a God, then evolution is still true. And if there's not a God, evolution is still true. And they just kept sticking back to the Bible and the creation story so stubbornly, no matter what anybody showed them. And I was like, am I like that? And so I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be honest. I thought it was a bad witness at the time to be dishonest and deny things that are true. And eventually I deconverted totally, but that's another story. But
that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Do you mind me asking what denomination you were?
I'm biracial, so my parents divorced, so Vietnamese Catholic and Southern Baptist on my dad's side.
Wow. Okay.
Both sides telling her that the other parent is going to hell.
Yeah. Because they're not a Christian, they're Mary worshippers, that kind of thing.
It's so wild to me. Oh God. Well, I'm really glad you found each other. I think that's a beautiful story. I mean, wow.
Start with I wasn't wearing any underwear. I wasn't wearing any underwear, and I was on.
I mean, they don't have to know that. They don't know. You're in the comfort of your own home. You might not have been wearing pants.
Yeah,
I'm not wearing pants right now.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a dress, so technically, I mean,
I am
14 years. 14.
How many years?
14.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. Oh my! That had to been. Was it hard for you with your family? Did they have a hard time accepting when you left?
My sister no longer talks to me.
My brother no longer talks to me.
Wow.
My brother realized he was agnostic early on, and they accept that because he's agnostic. And my sister's but that's different because you're in more in your face about it. And I'm like, because I'm atheist? Because I barely discuss it with her.
Yeah.
And so that's how that goes. And she just refuses to speak with me.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Well, with me, it was, I mean, my family was already having, I mean, they were having problems with me being atheist, but it wasn't just that I didn't believe in God, but when I didn't worship their orange God, that was it.
Yeah. Which I mean, I have a lot of feelings about the orange god because I really do at the heart of it. If you're believe at the heart of it that if you are a Trump supporter and you support his policies, then you by default are a racist, and that doesn't always go over well with folks that want to hear that they're not. Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I have my own issues in parallel with that, you know.
yeah.
But this
Yeah.
isn't a political show, and it's not about our stories either. But
I visited his brothers once, and they dropped the N-bomb, of course, and
I'm sorry.
several times in
then they won't
20
admit
years.
it if you say that they're racist with the Trump support and all that. They're like, no, I'm not. But you use the N-word. No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
got. That was the last communication I had, was the denying that they ever said that word that they said a half a dozen times over dinner.
Wow.
Wow, okay.
That's
The Southern
Jesus.
Baptist part of my family was like that with the N-word jokes and stuff like that. I grew up in the 70s, so
Yeah.
I'm
too.
sorry.
You sound
yeah.
like you grew up in the 70s too, because you're talking about Jack Tripper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting
I
back to
eat
our
it in.
guest and
Yeah.
your story.
Yes. No, but I want to know about you. So I interview other people, and now it's coming out because you can't intrigue me.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, my wife became a science communicator, as did I, and we both have our own stories for that. But we're here to find out why you did.
Yeah. Well, so for me, when I was, I always knew I didn't want to do. My mom is an academic. That's what I'm trying to say. My mom's an academic, and I knew I did not want to go down that road per se. I didn't want to necessarily be tied to a university. I also had friends that worked in academia, and I had heard all the complaints and the shortcomings and how their lives were kind of ruled by it, and they were barely able to pay the bills in some cases, especially when it comes to adjunct lecturing. And so when I was finishing up grad school, it was 2010 that I finished my field work, and I did it. It was a program that a lot of people do in 4 years. I did it in 2 because I was just like, get me in and get me out. And I was on the PhD or not to PhD fence, and I knew I wanted to take some time before I jumped into something like a PhD. And that fall, I started pitching science comedy television shows because I would read scientific peer-reviewed articles and I would laugh my balls off. I just could not.
Which
There
is
was
why
just
you
so
don't
much
have
humor.
them
I mean,
now.
yeah, I lost them exactly. If anyone by the way, internet, if anyone has seen my balls, please come contact me now. But no, I would just. I would read these articles, and I have an unfair advantage studying monkeys, right? Like primates are inherently funny. I mean, humans are primates, right? But I started pitching science comedy television shows. One of the first ones was called The Sordid Lives of Primates, which I understand why it was not purchased now as somebody who's done this for a long time. But still, I had all these shows that I'd come up with, including a late night science comedy show. Think The Daily Show meets SNL, house band, a little bit of a Conan feel, sketch comedy. And yeah, like with a host and correspondents, and those could be comedians and science communicators. And this is also before the time the word science communication or communicator was being thrown around. People asked me what I did, and I was like, I make science comedy. But I would pitch these shows and I'd get laughed out of the room. And so a friend of mine was like, you've got a camera, you write, you perform, why don't you just do it yourself? And so I
For context,
produced
when was this on a calendar?
2010. So this is fall 2010. Yeah, this is a long time ago. And I'm 44. And so I was in my early 30s when this was all happening. And like, again, science communication, like Bill Nye was the guy, right? And like, even Neil was not huge at that point. He was in some circles, of course, but in not, he wasn't a household name per se. Sagan was like, Hale Sagan was that's the guy. And also a hero of mine.
He was my inspiration, by the way.
He's a solid, wonderful beautiful person. Like, I wish the world is unfair that he's not here.
I never felt such I don't know, a philosophical connection to anybody in my life than when I watched the original Cosmos,
Yeah.
and he connected with me. I often told the joke that I wanted to give birth to his two-headed love child.
There. You know, I have a feeling he wouldn't have minded that. I think he would have been like, I'm in, all in. Let's do this. I would have loved to have babysat that two-headed love child. That, you know, but yeah.
But Aaron is like always saying how heterosexual he is. So you're heteroflexible, honey.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. We need to change topics before she brings up Vince Neil.
Oh, yeah, right. Is Vince Neil your guy? Is that the one that you're like, woo, if given
I told
a chance?
this joke about how in 1984 Vince Neil was convicted of killing the drummer for Hanoi Rocks in a drunk driving accident where he's going 140 in a 35, right? And so, but because he's super stupid rich, he doesn't go to prison. He spent 30 days in a private jail cell with his own color TV.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so just to give her a bit of context, and I was now think about this, they're going to send this guy to prison. And I showed her what he looked like. And I showed what Vince Neil looked like from the Shout at the Devil tour. Like, they're going to send this boy to prison. Imagine how popular he's going to be in prison. And that's when it became
he's very heterosexual, except for Carl Sagan and Vince Neil.
You got to have like that hall pass. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay. I mean, I'm definitely pansexual. I'm like, if you're cool, you're awesome. Like, I'm good. I used to say bisexual, but like, honestly, that doesn't even, I'm just equal opportunity, hot, cool people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think I played Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Crew for enough years that I really don't care.
Oh my! Well, you'll be happy to know I'm doing Frankenfurter tomorrow night.
Oh,
I'm actually doing a comedy show. I'm doing a show. You would love it. It's called Horror Nerd. I always have to pronounce it very horror nerd because it sounds like I'm saying horror nerd, but it's a horror comedy show. And forgive me, the gardeners have arrived. They have touched down. We have contact with the gardeners. They have gotten here. So I hope they're not too loud. But yeah, I'm doing we have to dress like our favorite horror icon. And so I chose Frankenfurter. And I'm going to do a bit about how, you know, all these folks coming out of the woodwork, especially country music stars, you know, who loves fringe, sequins, and rhinestones more than drag queens, but country music stars. But they're coming out there like getting mad at Dylan Mulvaney being the face of Bud Light and also being like, where are all the masculine men at, like our forefathers? So I break down how our forefathers weren't all that masculine in terms of modern day ideas of masculinity.
Wigs, high heels, makeup.
Yeah, capri pants,
nylon
stockings. Yeah, a low pony with a velveteen bow. Like, I'm going all through it. Yeah, I'm breaking down, but also how, like, if you're gonna get mad at you know, human males being garish and bright, then let's start with the OG drag queens and talk about peacocks, the male mandrill, the blue balls of the vervet monkey. That the bluer the balls, the better he is in the sack, or at least that's what the ladies think, you know?
And this was our first indication that monkeys had color vision.
Yeah. That, and also eating ripe fruit. Like, that's one of the thoughts, is that the color vision came to basically determine if a piece of fruit, like, it was sort of a little co-evolution where we've got, you know, colored fruit. So it's like an indicator like, hey, I'm ripe. But also they can smell it out because the ethanol is, you know, you can't sniff it out. But we
made our way back to monkeys.
Yeah, I always meander it back. But yeah, so as far as I was pitching television shows, and so finally my friend was like, why don't you do your own? And so I started making videos in my garage, like one does. And the first one was called The Story of Boobs, the Breast Tale Ever Told, about the evolution of human sweater cows, because non-human primates, dear God, those gardeners, they sound like howler.
I can't hear them. I can't hear them, and it's okay that my dogs are not fighting right now.
Okay, good. I do see one in the background in repose, and it looks very sleepy and adorable. I can see it on a couch.
Yep.
It's a good dog. I love dogs. But yeah, so the story of boobs, the breast tale ever told, it's kind of come for the boobs, stay for the science, where I got to talk about hominin evolution and what happens when you went from walking on all fours to 2 legs, and how one of the theories is that breasts were an indicator to the opposite sex that we were now ready to receive, because you get them at puberty and you maintain them throughout your life, which is unique because humans actually have concealed ovulation, which is unique in the fact that our closest genetic relatives, they put it on display. We talk about monkey butts or the chimpanzee or bonobo butts. Those aren't their butts. Those are not their butts. Those are they're vulvas. They're vulvas.
Oh my
Telling a
God.
signal.
I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
No primate has a butt quite like Homo sapiens.
No, and I do a lot of yeah. And so the story of boobs,
I mean,
I
gorillas
made
come close.
yes,
Gorillas
they got like
a
a nice
butt.
little tuchus,
Yeah.
like a little, ours is more of a half circle. Well, in some cases, and theirs is like a parentheses. You know what I mean? It's just like a little. But yeah, so I made this video, the story of boobs. It did not go viral. But a lot of my and I was so nervous. And by the way, kind of there's a lot of imposter syndrome with this beginning stages, because I was afraid of being truly myself in the academic community as I'm graduating from grad school and being looked down upon, being a woman that's not afraid to talk about my sexuality or, secondary sex characteristics in kind of a cheeky way. So I was really worried about releasing that video, but it was well received. And, but it didn't go viral. However, a producer from the Today Show, apparently it was a slow week, and they Googled anthropologist and boobs because they wanted to cover America's obsession with tatas. And they found me, and I got this. I just had graduated from grad school. I was very depressed, not knowing what I was going to do next. It was like that come down from, a very intense trajectory forward. And then it was like, it all ended. And it was like, now what? And I got a call from the Today Show saying, do you want to come out and talk about boobs with Ann Curry? And I said, hell yeah, let's do this. And I did that episode. And then a couple of days later, Stephen Colbert made fun of us on his show and said, what about butts? What about butts, NBC? What about butt week? And so I did a rebuttal calling for butt week, and it allowed me to talk about the evolution of the human butt, because like you just said, the human butt is very unique in the fact that the way the muscles are connected, the size, the gluteus maximus is huge compared to, other muscles in our own body. And then also just the way that, basically bipedalism led to this new fantastic fanny, and it got me able to talk about that stuff. So I did a lot of butt stuff, which sounds, you know what I mean, wrong, but it's right in the fact that we're talking about
we ask the probing questions.
You're rearing and ready to get behind butt week. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did butt week number 1, no butts, no glory, and then butt week number 2 with liberty and just ass for all.
The punishment.
Yes, yeah, I call myself the Punisher. But yes, it's terrible. There were so many butt puns, and I had people come on and talk about why they love butts and why they're behind butt week. And I did some episodes of, different. I was on Fox News, which was weird, talking about pheromones, and then also I brought up the hypertrophied clitoris of spider monkeys. That didn't go over well with Fox News. I think they cut that out. But I did come on to talk about butts, and this is 2011 at 11 at the time. So I was not keen on being on Fox, but now it's like, it's got a whole nother level of, are you kidding? Absolutely. Hell no, never. But it was an interesting time. And then what I was pitching, I had a PR person that was helping me out, and they pitched it to Jimmy Kimmel's show. And they were like, yeah, have her write up a bunch of butt week sketches. And so I wrote a crap ton of a buttload, if you will, of butt week sketches. And they came back to me and they said, well, it's an election year. I doubt we're going to do it, because by this point it's 2012 and Mitt Romney was all the rage. And God, he seemed so huh?
One of the things I learned about butts, about monkey and ape butts, is some of them have calloused butts for sitting in trees and stuff, and we have soft butts.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know that basically those ischials are nice and callous, so they can sit down and not, get completely, rashes or, They have a nice hard tuchus to kind of take that brunt of the sit.
Because they don't wear pants or underwear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's funny because I mean, as evolution, we do so much sitting nowadays. I wonder, like, long term, what that would look like. Like, now that, are we gonna get like nice little pancake asses? Are we gonna get calluses, or are the pants gonna keep us from that? Or, we're gonna flat butts or.
I'm trying not to make this a political show, but it would still, you bring things up like, you remember when we thought Romney was the bad guy?
I know.
Yeah, we were so relieved when Obama was elected that night, and we watched the Trump election in horror.
Right? It's so yeah, Mitt Romney, it's so fun. I did a thing called Science It's Your Friend where I talked about, because remember when he made a joke like, why can't we open windows on airplanes? And so I was like, hey, Mitt, I'm Natalia. I'm going to teach you about air pressure. And he also made fun of PBS and said, why are we funding PBS and Sesame Street? And like, that was the worst thing he did. And like, what? Yeah, we were so young. We were so young.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what normally happens on this show is we'll interview a scientist for a half hour or so, and we've gone 40 minutes with you, and then we would.
Dear Lord, I'm so sorry.
I've done an hour with other people. I mean, I have to break in at some point and just find out, do we have questions from the chat? Because I haven't seen a list. Have there been questions for our guest?
We have two that they're in the private chat.
We have. Okay, so this is all we've got. I'll go ahead and read these then. And we'll just have to do the show a little bit differently than we normally do. We'll just continue the conversation, and I'm happy to do that.
I'm sure
Scott K.
about butts.
Scott K offers $5 and says, Mikey Johnson thinks Santa Claus is Coming to Town is a documentary. Yeah, I just did a series on Mike Johnson. What a disturbing character.
Yeah. No,
okay, so then, yeah. And then Matt White says, Natalia.
Hello.
Did wading behavior lead to walking upright, or the other way around, aquatic stage between trees and ground?
Yeah, so there's the aquatic ape theory that walking actually began when primates would go into the water and stand upright. There's also a theory that the boobs would also have been like water wings, or like little kind of little floaties that the kids could grab onto. That was another theory that does not get a lot of love in the anthro world. There's not much support for the wading and the aquatic ape theory. Most likely, given the recreation of paleo environments, it looks like we were actually in trees. It wasn't quite a savanna right when the walking on two legs happened. It probably was mostly walking on, like, and this is something I see a lot with the spider monkeys, is they will walk on two legs in the trees, and they'll use their hands to kind of hold them up as they walk. And spider monkeys, when they walk, like gibbons, because they're both spider monkeys are semi-brachiators, meaning they are not the true swingers. Brachiation is the real swinging that you see gibbons do, but they do have these very long arms that they can use to kind of help them walk along tree branches or even on the ground. It's rare that spider monkeys will choose to go to the ground, but say if they're at a zoo or a sanctuary, you can kind of see them walking. But most likely it happened while walking in trees. And that the aquatic behavior, because a lot of apes don't get in the water. You'll see orangutans do it sometimes. You'll see chimps and bonobos do it sometimes, but you don't see like gorillas doing it a lot. It most likely was, again, starting off in the trees, walking, along the tree branches. Also, as the environment became drier over time, there are different theories of thermoregulation, that walking on two legs would prevent the amount of heat coming down on your back. So standing up, means you would getting the brunt of it, on your head and your shoulders rather than your whole entire back, and you wouldn't be so hot. There's also this idea that it's great for be on the lookout for predators. When you're standing upright, you can look around and see what might be coming after you to try to chomp you. And it could be multiple things, not just necessarily one theory could be correct, but the aquatic ape theory hasn't gotten as much support, or there's not a lot of evidence there to support it. It's a fun one.
You're being polite. You're being very polite.
I am. I try not. Well, I hate to be like, you're fucking wrong. Excuse my French, but I would
have to agree. There is a consensus that and this is surprising to a lot of people who've seen the images, the bastardizations of Rudy Zallinger's March of Progress, who never actually, he didn't have our ancestors doing knuckle walking. In fact, our ancestors never did knuckle walking. It would appear that, I mean, orangutans walk on their fists, and I'm saying this for the audience, of course, orangutans walk on their fists. They do this fist walking. Gorillas and chimpanzees seemingly both secondarily adapted a knuckle walking stature, but that if you look at what the way gibbons are, same as with spider monkeys, when they get down on the ground, because their arms are now so long, they are habitually bipedal on the ground.
Yeah.
So and when you look also at the Dryopithecines, there's Dryopiths. There's like 40 different species of Dryopiths, and these lead into the great apes. So these are where you could view them as, in a sense, ancestral to hominidae, or the great apes as we know them now. But I mean, they either walked on their flat hand or they were fully bipedal.
When you said you studied spider monkeys, I looked it up briefly, and I see that their scientific name means imperfect because they don't have opposable thumbs.
Yeah, no. So that's I do a little bit about them because you can't, there's no thumb wars with the spider monkey because they actually just don't have thumbs. They've got little hook hands, and that's an evolutionary advantage if you're going to be semi-brachiating, because that thumb gets in the way if you're grabbing branches all day long. And I call them kind of the pirates of the primates, you got little hooks for hands. And they also are unique in the females have a hypertrophied clitoris, which makes it really easy for you to tell males and females apart. If you look at a spider monkey and you think that dude is hung, it's a female. That's how you tell them apart. I learned that the hard way when I turned my advisor and was like, that gentleman spider monkey is very well hung. And she's like, oh no, she just belongs to the big clit family.
Wow.
So and the males,
not the only time that happens. I'm sure you know about the hyenas.
I'm sure that's an interesting field to study. Clitoris.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a video. I wanted to make a video about the weird things that nature does with sex, because there's so many bizarre stories. But it was the details were kind of sick making in some cases, and some people were saying like, no, you need to not make that video.
They are. I don't like to call out Neil too much, but Neil sometimes tweets without knowing what he's talking about, because it's out of his wheelhouse, right? And years ago, he tweeted that if there was a species for which sex was painful, it would have long gone extinct. And of course, and this is on Twitter, so all the biology Twitters like jumping in, they're like cats, bed bugs, duck, like all these species, and and then you talk about sexual cannibalism, like which I think we need to bring back. I think men would be on better behavior if we brought back. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yes, the praying mantis, we got black widows, we got, octopuses that die oftentimes right after they, finally reproduce. But yeah, I've done a lot of videos. I've done a couple
to come and go.
Right. We really do need I need a little drum. I've done videos on the because I do stand up about the hypertrophied clit, or the pseudopenis. Hyenas, elephants, spider monkeys. Hyenas give birth through it, and a lot of first-time mothers don't survive. So that's I
appreciated that you also mentioned the bicliteri of snakes.
Oh yeah, the hemipenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not just the hemipenes, but because the males have these two, and I call them Cthulhu love story. Lovecraftian love story is what they have, because that's horrific. Don't send me those dick pics. I will have nightmares. But then the females have clitori, two of them. The fact that they have one is an indication of how snake sex works. I mean, so what's the purpose of a clitoris? It's just purely for pleasure, right? I mean, so the snakes are enjoying this, and I hope people are not getting too weird at what I'm saying right now. But then they
also making a lot of snakes happy.
So you have double clitori, which of course matches the male's double penis, and then you threw out the joke, but they also have forked tongues.
Yeah, the carpet smacks the drapes, yeah, everything's forked. Yeah, in fact, if you want to interview, I'm sure she'd be open to being interviewed. I interviewed the lead researcher on that paper about the hemiclitoris or hemiclitors, and I just interviewed her a few.
Clitori.
Clitorides. Well, they say hemiclitors. Clitorides is actually the plural term. I think it's not like even like octopi, it's octopuses. Technically, you can say octopi, but octopuses is one that if you talk to a marine biologist, they usually do the pusses. But I interviewed her, and her name's Megan Falwell, and she whipped out so many horrific hemipenes because all the species have different types of hemipenes. Like she was just whipping out all these different like little jars and pulling them out and showing them up. I was dying. It was amazing, but also horrific.
Have you ever been to Iceland?
No. Should I go?
Yes.
I would like to go.
Yes.
They have.
Oh yeah, the museum.
Yes.
The penis museum.
How was it?
It's called the penis museum too.
Yeah, I forget what there's another more appropriate title, but I can't remember exactly what it is. But yeah, we go every time, especially when we bring people with us who've never been to Iceland. We're like, well, we gotta go. You want to take me to a penis museum? The fuck is right? Yeah, no, really, you gotta go.
Oh my God! Can I come?
A whale penis, and it is taller than me.
Wow, was it? Because I know the southern right whale has the biggest testicles in the world. I make a lot of videos about penises, FYI, but like I know they have the biggest testicles, but they boast an 8 to 12 foot long prehensile baloney pony.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, they could slap you in the face. You know,
that would be quite a money shot.
Yeah, right. A whole new meaning to cold cocking.
Yep.
I'm going to read some comments now.
Oh no.
Let's see. Pattern Machine offers $20. Thank you very much. It says, "Good show, laughing my ass off."
Oh, thank you.
Very much for that.
Yeah.
And then Matt White says, "Natalia, did the consumption of fish/mollusk crustaceans promote bigger brains?"
Anything. So that's a great question because trying to figure out what brought the bigger brain, because we now know that bipedalism came first. Encephalization, or the bigger brain, came second. And there's different theories of why that is. For a long time, it was about meat, protein, and fish. Mollusks would be a great example of what that would be, right? And they're higher in calories. And because brains are so expensive, they take a lot of calories to fuel. Another thing that's coming out right now, and I have friends, a good friend of mine, Julie Lesnick, amazing anthropologist. She wrote a book called Eating Insects. She's looking at isotope analysis of teeth to understand if eating insects, because 2 billion people in the world eat insects. We think it's gross and weird in the West, but not all of us, but many of us, it's all accidental eating of insects, right? Eating spiders while we're sleeping or getting a bug in your salad, whatever. But that might have also contributed to brain growth. We know that our closest genetic relatives love to eat, they're constantly termite fishing with their sticks, or they're, eating ants and whatnot. So who's to say that they didn't literally grub out on some big old fat grubs? But also another theory is that when fire came on the scene, you could now cook food that would be high in calories but terrible. Eating a tuber without fire is not the most enjoyable. Eating raw potatoes or manioc is not exactly a good time. So the advent, or not advent, but the look, fire, we can use this now. The discovery of it could have also promoted bigger brain growth as well. So, but yeah, all of these things. And we do know that we've seen capuchin monkeys use rocks to crack open shellfish. And it's really great because capuchin monkeys, I call them diablitos. They're found only in Latin America. They also have a prehensile tail they can manipulate, but they have very big brains to body size, and they do great tool use and eat a good amount of protein. I'm looking to see. Oh,
and then Mr. Fats says, since we're talking about talking chimps, if a mad scientist decided to try and make modern chimps talk, what would he need to get them to talk?
Ooh, well, that's yeah.
I know an answer for this, but
Yeah.
I mean, because my degree is in anthropology as well,
Yeah.
and so we're both in the same wheelhouse there, I think.
Right. Well, they're hyoid. So that what really promotes speech is the shape of the hyoid bone, which is the bone that anytime we make any vocalization, it comes from that. They're now looking at Neanderthals and determining, you know, what they. One of my favorite videos, and I don't know if you've probably seen this, is the video of the Neanderthal of what they think they would have sounded like if they did speak.
I didn't see that one.
There's a yes, everyone at home, folks at home, BBC, it's a Google Neanderthal talking BBC, and essentially they look at the shape of the hyoid bone. Chimpanzees can make vocalizations. They're great at it. They're very loud, very boisterous, but they don't necessarily have the ability to talk. So I don't know.
There's an interesting thing about
it's also not just the hyoid bone, but it's also the actual brain power to do it as well. So what is
There's
your
an
thought?
Interesting thing about how biological development emulates evolutionary development is what they call Evo or Evo-Devo.
Yeah.
And with chimpanzees, what you get is there's a position of the throat of where the hyoid bone is, and the shape of the roof of the mouth, that we have this tiny little crest that enable us to do all these more vocalizations than chimpanzees can do, because theirs is just flat. And it's like the subtle movement. You have to change the subtle change in the shape of your lips if you want to whistle. That's kind of what we're talking about here. But one of the problems that we have as to why we can so easily choke on our food is because of the position of our throat as adults that also enables us to speak with this kind of articulation. Chimpanzees don't have that, and human children have throats more like chimpanzees do, and so that they change as they grow into the adult human form, or they start out with the chimpanzee form, which of course this isn't common knowledge to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot that a lot of the little nuances also can be detrimental. You know what I mean? It's kind of like bipedalism and back problems and knee problems. You know, we have this great advantage that now, and friends of mine actually just wrote an article for Scientific American about Women the Hunter, about how part of the reason why we have done so well and have become great hunters, and why women actually are great at it, is endurance. That a lot of times it was outrunning and outlasting our prey. That even though that we might not be faster at marathons, we're better at them. And part of it has a lot to do with our build, but also the estrogen. I won't go deep into that because that's a whole tangent. But yeah, but then it leads to back problems, knee problems that we would not necessarily have if we walked on all fours.
Problems giving birth.
Yes, problems giving birth. And even that, like, there's been new research coming out that the obstetric dilemma, that the reason why we have problems giving birth, a long-standing theory was that because, you know, our heads are so big and our hips can't accommodate. And it's actually less about that, but we give birth at the time that we do because it's too expensive. Like, it's actually too many calories to keep building a brain this big. And so it would make sense to give birth when we do. And that's why our babies are so altricial, or as I like to say, just helpless gelatinous sacks of beans and sand. I mean, they're just like these floppy little, you know, like wind socks that are just, you know. I have a pug that I could demonstrate because she literally has no bones. She does have bones. Literal wasn't the right use of the word, but she acts like she's, you know, she dead weights all the time. That's what babies do, right? Speaking of babies, I see a dog behind you.
Yeah, this is Falcor. He's my luck dragon.
His name is Falcor.
Because he can fly.
Is he a Great Pyrenees?
Yes. Sorry. I have an 8-foot fence, and he has managed to get over, under, through it dozens and dozens of times in the years that we've had him. It's amazing how easy he gets out. But anyway,
Pyrenees are notorious for doing that. Like, whenever you see a video of some dog being rescued in a swamp where they had to get the helicopter to go get him, it's a Great Pyrenees.
Oh my God.
I wanted to throw in something about encephalization. One of the interesting things that I happened across was that this discovery of defective genes, that defects in genes can actually lead to positive effects. Mm-hmm. So one of them being how we don't have the musculature in our jaws that, you know, especially the gorillas and chimpanzees have. And
Yeah.
they have so much more musculature that it has to anchor to something. It has to anchor to that sagittal crest. Well, there's a mutation that we have that cost us most of that muscle mass, and that also consequently cost us that sagittal crest. And there's that we don't have the restriction on where our skull can grow. That restriction is gone. So it's just now open to be expanded. And then there's another mutation, which was a tumor suppressor gene, that without the tumor suppressor, well, now it leaves us vulnerable to brain cancer on occasion. But the other thing that it does is it allows our brains to just grow.
Yeah.
So
That is
two
wild.
defective genes
Wow.
working in concert
Yeah.
to create big brains.
Wow. Okay. I did not know that. That's fascinating. I point out a little, this is a not to scale Western lowland gorilla, but yeah, that sagittal crest and those huge chewing muscles. I mean, that right there would constrict any sort of, their brains are kind of locked in, but wow. What, do you know what the, yeah.
Do you think cooking our food made the larger jaw muscles less necessary?
Yeah, jaw muscles and also our teeth are very different. So like one of the things that is happening with humans is we're losing the need for wisdom teeth. That's why a lot of us, they get impacted and they have to get removed and things of that sort. Like for instance, chimpanzees. Do I have a chimp skull?
We have a smaller jaw. We have the same number of teeth. Our teeth are smaller, but there's still, the jaw is so much smaller that it causes that third molar to come in sideways sometimes.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And so but so chimpanzees actually use it, it's kind of like you use it or lose it. Right. And so because they're constantly grinding and chewing and eating, sometimes it's harder to grind foods. They prefer fruit more than like say a gorilla, which has, they also have that molar that they're eating a lot of bamboo and really hard to grind food. That's why the sagittal crest or the musculature is very helpful. But also they need that tooth to kind of do the work. Enamel thickness is also affected. And then agriculture, I joke, ruined everything because, one of the things is you're only eating grains. If that's all you're eating, like if you're, just eating a lot of grains and maybe some livestock, you're going to have a lot more dental caries. So we see a lot of more, cavities as time goes on when people start settling down because they're eating foods that would, starches and things like that would kind of get lost in there and create dental problems.
I was going to throw in that there's also the PAX9 mutation. If you want to look at track back to the movie Gattaca, where people can genetically enhance our children, there is a mutation that scientists would like to be able to implement this mutation, because what it results in is the anagenesis, or failure to develop that third molar. So of course, if you never develop that third molar, then you can't have an impacted third molar. Now, can you?
Right. And at a certain point, like now we have modern medicine, but if somebody had that happen in a place where they couldn't, and that got infected, it became an abscess. I've known people who died from abscess teeth in, the past 20 years.
One of the most famous fossils of Homo erectus. I forget what the name of this. I'm sure you'll probably remember it, but this was a very tall boy that was estimated to be about 8 years old, but almost full grown.
Yeah.
You have his skull.
Nario Kitomi, or Lake Turkana boy.
There we go. And the cause of death? Abscess tooth.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of dentists start off in the military, because the military wants everybody's teeth in order, because you can't take care of that stuff on the battlefield.
Not only did she know his name, she had his skull.
I also have minis. I was printing up little, this is a Paranthropus mini. That's an earring, but I have a mini Nario Kitomi. But yeah, teeth. When I was teaching, I would lecture about teeth, and my students would get so weirded out because I was like, "We're talking about teeth today," and they're just like, "What is wrong with this woman?" Because I think they're fascinating. They tell us so much about somebody's health, about their diet, a species diet, even understanding like dental formula and the tooth comb in some species, with lemurs, and there's just so much really fascinating stuff that happens. But also just, I when I got hit by that truck, I landed on my head, which explains a lot. but also I've had 14 root canals. 2 of them were redos because I had teeth that have been cracked, but also before that I had terrible teeth, you know? And it's just wild to me how we're so hardy in some ways, our species, but we're so delicate in others, you know, like a tooth could take you down. And that's why when people kind of brush off tooth health, it's like, no, that's right. Like your brain's here, your teeth are here. Take care of this, you know?
If I had been born 100 years before I was, if I had been born before, if I had been born 100 years before I was, it would have been before Origin of the Species had been published. If I'd been born then, I wouldn't make it to this age. There's a half a dozen things that had they had the same lifestyle, the same occurrences, then yeah, I would have been killed by half a dozen different things before I got to here.
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, we talk about like going back to a simpler and better time. I'm like, yeah, where you would have died of polio, you know what I mean?
Or an abscess tooth.
Exactly, right? Yeah, some zit on your back that you picked at, and then all of a sudden you've got like this. What did he die of? Oh, he had a pimp. You know,
A staph infection.
Right, a staph infection. I had a staph infection. I named my things. I had a thing here that I named Walter. I had Gordon, which was a staph infection on my stomach. You know what I mean? Like these are the I'd have to tell Gordon, express yourself. It's time for you to go away, you know. But yeah, this is true.
Got a couple more comments to read. Cow eats man. If brains are energy expensive, then is it possible that in the deep future that nature will select humans with smaller brains for an energy depleted environment?
Well, I think
natural selection is not something that we praise.
Right.
One of the things about transhumanism, the way it was first explained to me, was in context of Gattaca, where we have to take control of our own evolution because it would be inhumane to allow natural selection to determine how our species develops. That we have to take control of that, because it's just allowing nature to do it is too cruel.
Right. Well, I mean, with COVID, it was a great example, right? Everybody was just like, well, if you're immunocompromised, like that's your problem. Like you're just going to die. I'm not going to get a vaccine. If you can't get one, screw you. And it's when you see this sort of like very fierce, exceptional, exceptional individualism, where it's like, I'm special. I get to do what I want. But yes, you're right. Like we have to think about, how can we keep from nature doing its thing? And also, I think humans really need to take a step back and realize we're part of nature too. We're very much part of, like, and part of this is
we're not
us making
fallen angels.
I forgot. Yes, we are. Yes, totally. But yeah, we are part of nature too. I mean, like that's, I think, a huge part of it. And even like when I will get back to it, I promise. But when somebody saw a video of like somebody interfering and trying to let an iguana get away from a raccoon, and another scientist was saying like, hey, let nature take its course. And I'm like, but humans have been around animals trying to eat each other for years. Like this is not anything new. We evolved alongside them. We are the newer species. There have probably been plenty of humans that ignored it and let it happen, right? But there are some that are probably like, let that little guy go, rooting for the underdog.
I argue that the reason that we became what we were, that before we had big brains, after we lost the excessive musculature that some of the other apes have, there was this awkward intermediate stage where the only thing that we have was something that chimpanzees surprisingly don't have to anywhere near the degree that we do, and that was empathy for each other. Now, it seems of late when I watch politics and I see that the number one greatest evil in the world is being woke, that other people may have problems, that, hey, it would be helpful if you would be considerate that other people have problems that you or that I don't particularly have, but I can be aware that someone else has. Somehow being aware of that is the worst thing that you could possibly be. Compassion is somehow bad.
Yeah.
I think there's a distinction with chimpanzees, right? The pan troglodytes have less empathy and the bonobos have more empathy.
Yeah. Well,
but they don't have to the degree that we do. So the difference between us and other herd animals, other social species, is where very often, not always, but very often, the Cape buffalo will be, the whole herd will be running, and the one weak one will be pulled out, and but it sometimes, as we saw in that famous Kruger video, the entire herd turns around and says, "What?" And now you've got 3 lions facing 150 Cape buffalo saying, I don't think I'm not hungry anymore.
I've rethought this. Yeah. No.
So what happened with us is when there would be some massive predator, Dinofelis or whatever, it comes into our tribe and tries to take the slowest or the weakest or the whatever. And this happens to be somebody's child. Right. Well, we happen to defend our children and so forth. Sometimes we even defend grandma. Right. So what happens is there may be 40 of us. You can take out any one of us, but can you take all of us?
Yeah.
Because I've seen some very tribal organizations that often say, you fuck with one of us, you fuck with all of us. And then that's the winning thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We stand together and then we're indomitable. And that seems to be something that we seem to have completely forgotten of late.
Yeah. It's the one thing I would say that kind of, I agree in many ways, but I think one thing that we do see, and this is a thing I bring up when I talk about the pet trade, is that, say, for instance, and this happens a lot with like bushmeat and or trying to get pets from the wild, is for every one infant that's taken from the wild, you could assume probably 6 to 8 adults were killed, because they will come and try to protect that infant. That is because they want the little one, because that's the one that is malleable and hasn't gotten mean or aggressive. So they will go and try to protect their own. But there is, a difference between that and a whole group of people who are completely unrelated, right? Because you can mostly assume that in a group of chimpanzees, you're going to have a lot of relatedness, although there is a dispersal of females. They are patrilocal. The females leave the group. But I don't want to say that they're completely without empathy. I think that Jane Goodall would definitely argue that she's seen a fair amount, but not.
I didn't mean to imply completely. I just meant that they don't have empathy to the degree that we do.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a tough one, right? Because like I've talked about this recently with a lot of friends and on different shows about anthropomorphizing animals and giving them traits that we consider to be specifically human. And I kind of argue this idea, well, they came first. A lot of these traits that we are kind of we think we're foisting on them are traits that they have that we also have. We learned it from watching them rather than or historically. There's another dog. I see another dog. This is me just checking out your dogs. What was I going to say?
There's a boxer. There's a boxer over there.
I saw that little mug. That's a good mug. What's that dog's name?
That one is named, you're going to love this, Borgnine.
Oh my God, Ernest.
Because all boxers look like Ernest Borgnine.
They do. Oh my God. What was that dessert? Yeah.
Also, like Star Trek, because he has a brown patch over his face, so half of his face looks different from the other, like a Borg.
So we spelled it Borg numeral 9.
You are awesome. That is hilarious. By the way, I live across the street from Warner Brothers, and Jerry Ryan, I would go out and pick it every day in a banana costume because I'm a weirdo, because I'm a Screen Actors Guild member, and she would be out there every day. 7 of 9, just rocking it. So I thought you'd appreciate that. But yeah, back to, the thing about woke too, I was going to just bring up, because I did a thing on, I don't know if you're familiar with John Fugelsang. He's a very progressive comic. He's Catholic, but he's about as progressive as it gets, and very much, pro-choice and just exceptionally progressive. But I did a thing on his show called Shit You Can't Say, and one of the words, about words and phrases with problematic origins. And woke doesn't necessarily have a problematic origin, but it was hijacked by, Republicans. It was a word used by African Americans to describe, you got to stay woke to the injustice, and then all of a sudden now it's being used by Republicans, and then also bogarted by like Democrats too, saying like, well, I don't want to be woke. It's like, woke is not a bad thing, like you said, and like the actual history of the word is, about standing up to injustice. So it's just like, how the heck is that a bad thing? Is
so if you're
me.
anti-woke, you're anti-standing up to injustice.
Yeah.
I'm having such a problem with this, and that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing. I don't get that. A couple more comments to read. John O'Neill says, yeah, I saw there is a book all about how when humans started cooking their food, that caused a leap in human evolution in how it increased brain size from better nutrition or more desirable food. Well, there is a certain degree of practice that's involved in this, because I mean, natural selection also has this thing: if you can't figure out what you're doing, it'll tend to kill you. And fire works like that a lot.
Fire,
I escaped the house fire once, so I understand. Yes. Yeah.
I think that was for you when I answered it. And then the Dakota Wolf 11 says, is bringing back extinct pre-Homo sapiens or Neanderthals considered unethical?
I would say yes, because you have to think about this. Okay, to bring them back, you can't technically, I don't know if you could, you have to have viable DNA. Like, for instance, bringing back a woolly mammoth, you would never be cloning a woolly mammoth. You'd be bringing back or creating a hybrid of a woolly mammoth and an Asian elephant, its closest genetic relative, because what you would do is you would be splicing in, using CRISPR-Cas9 technology, the traits that would be woolly mammoth like extra adipose tissue. So it's a little fatty. You got like extra hair. It's bigger. So it'd be more of a hybrid. So what would that mean for a Neanderthal? Now, I don't know if they have any viable DNA that would be good enough to quote unquote clone, but how the heck would they be doing that? Gestating it in a human. So that's where you get. Huh?
I like the way they put it in one of the Jurassic Park sequels, when they said we're only using partial dino DNA and we're having to use the rest. We're having to put in like frog DNA. If we had to complete DNA, many of these animals would look very different. And I thought that's a beautiful excuse to explain why your velociraptors don't have feathers.
Yeah. You're a very good point. Yeah, because like that, basically they'd have to that would have to take, a woman would have to be like, okay, use me, and then also the ethics of that, like, to gestate a Neanderthal, is she doing it by her? It's kind of like, is this forced consent? Like, are they gonna, I mean, sometimes, like, for instance, when it comes to like human cadavers, you don't necessarily know where those cadavers are coming from, or where the skeletal collections are coming from. Are they going to go to prisons and be like, hey, we'll let you out early if you do this? That's not really consent. That's kind of a, you're really, you're not giving me a real option there.
Similar argument, people say that if chimpanzees and humans were at all related, then we would be able to interbreed. I'm like, yeah, you want to do that experiment? Nobody wants to do that experiment.
I think they might have fertilized chimpanzee.
Yeah, but they
with the Human Project. I think that was
we've heard so many rumors. Russia, we've heard so many rumors about that, but nobody wants to own up to it.
Right. I think they destroyed the developing eggs because it's unethical.
I mean, that's the thing, is that subspecies can interbreed, but the two very different species, you have to be pretty darn close to be able to actually kind of create a hybrid. Even lion and tigers, like the liger or the tyon, they don't, not always the best outcome when you get hybrids like that. Horse and a donkey, you get a infertile mule. So it's, it's most likely, I can't imagine it would be any viable offspring. And like, even so with the, I did an episode for Star Talk years ago when Barbara Streisand cloned her favorite dog. God, when you have money, you just can just do anything, right? I mean, Falcor's great. Borgnine's great, but do you want to clone? I mean, I don't know. But so she cloned her dog. So we did this episode about, I interviewed Ross McPhee, he was a curator of mammalogy at AMNH, a really awesome guy, studies Megatherium, great giant ground sloths. But we talked about the ethical issues with mammoths. But we also were talking about trying to clone monkeys in China, and they finally were able to clone a monkey, but so many died to get there. And it's like, and it's even like the Neuralink that, what's his name, Musk, just implanted in a monkey, and I think it died shortly thereafter. And the ethical, he's, of course, ethics, or he's just like, whatever, self-driving Tesla's killing people, who cares, But
because being woke is the worst thing.
I saw something that, can we ship him? He wants to go to Mars. Can we ship him and all the billionaires to Mars? Let them duke it out at Mars,
You know what, guys? If we started a GoFundMe right now to ship the billionaires to Mars, I have a feeling it would somehow kick ass and take names. Although I think we should do that and then give all the money to the homeless, but the unhoused. I think that would be the way to do it. Like
maybe there would be more money for the homeless because the billionaires wouldn't be hoarding it.
Yeah.
So let's not go off down there.
Sorry.
I've got to close this up. I got another thing that I've got to do at 4:30, so I'm going to have to bail out of here, which is too bad because I am enjoying the hell out of this.
This is so much fun, and I'm so sorry I was late. I feel so bad.
No, you weren't that.
You'll never be forgiven.
Okay, cool. Guy, we got that covered.
Trevor Wright says, is genetic enhancement the future of curing human diseases and longer lifespan?
Well, it depends on what you mean by genetic advancement. So, like, for instance, I have a good friend. She has the BRCA1 gene. She had got breast cancer at 27 years old. The first thing she did when she found out, and this is awesome, they make women that want to have kids freeze their eggs before they start chemo, before they start radiation. That way you got those eggs on ice ready to go. And what they did is they also made embryos. So her and her husband could pick out those embryos that did not have the BRCA1 gene. So the child that they now have, thank God, it's kind of crazy that it's all happened within a few years. It does not, is missing that gene. So that's a genetic enhancement or advancement, not necessarily enhancement, but as far as splicing and playing with DNA like that, that's when we're going to get like we talked about, where there might be, we might change some things and add some things or think we're doing some good, but we could very well have some weird butterfly effect where we get an undesired trait that we're like, wow, we didn't see that one coming. Sorry, kid. So I think
it's tempting though. If you're gonna remove that mutation, can you add the PAX9 mutation that we talked about before?
Right?
There's an LRP5 function that I want to have. Oh, and there's a myostatin mutation. If you have the LRP5 and the myostatin, it'd be fucking Superman.
Yeah. Ethically, it might create a divide between the rich who could afford this gene editing and the rest of us.
There's an LRP5 mutation that causes unbreakable bones. And there's one strain of this. There's one type of it out of 6 or so. There's one type that has no side effects, apart from the fact that your bones are a bit heavier because they're shatterproof. You can't break them. And then if you combine that, there's this myostatin mutation where you get twice the muscle mass and half the fat. So you look like you live in a gym.
Oh. But that's got to come with its own series of shortcomings as well. I feel like that, but there's only one way. There's only one way to find out.
If there is a downside, if there is a side effect to this, they don't know what it is yet. It's just
you're just too hot, and
just always looking like you just walked out of a gym and you've never been to a gym in your life. You just look like that's how you live.
Well, it's like those, do you know what the dogs, I can't remember the name of the mutation. It's greyhounds, I think, get it, where they get this greyhound, I don't know what it's called, but it's like this swole gene. And I swear to God, greyhounds.
That's the one you're talking about. I've seen the greyhounds like that. It's the same.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Cause I was like, I've seen it and they just look like they're like, all the time. Yep. Like they, never seen a racetrack. All they've seen is the inside of a gym. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that could be erupt into a real big problem really quickly if it does not go the way we really want it to.
I just want to have been blessed with all of these mutations. I mean, just how much different would my life have been?
Right.
Anyway, going on to the next comment. Let me see. Colorado Biker says, if brains are so calorie hungry, then why do young Earth creationists not weigh 500 pounds?
This is maybe I don't know, maybe they got some weird gene that we were just talking about. Who knows? But yeah, that's a great question. I've never been a young Earth creationist myself, but yeah, I don't know, maybe they have some secret attack? Do they all belong to a gym that we don't know about? I don't know. Do they run for Jesus? Do they jazzercise for Jesus? Is that a thing?
I have seen it. It's horrible. But I have seen it. Mr. Fat's Variety Vibes Show says, at Lalandra Ra, is it true chimpanzees are in the wild are purely vegan, or do they also eat meat? No, they're not.
No. They eat meat. And one of my favorite things, this will give me a chance to talk real quick because I think this is exciting. Chimpanzees are known for doing all male hunts where the dudes will get together and I call red colobus monkeys chimp bait because they love to eat red colobus monkeys. Sometimes, there's a cat has entered a chat.
This is Heck Kitty.
I just have to acknowledge.
I
love that cat.
Heck Kitty. Hey Kitty.
It's a beautiful cat. A chimpanzee would definitely eat that cat. I'll just don't leave a chimp alone with your cat. But so chimpanzees, they'll get together in a group. They'll go after a monkey or dukers, whatever little thing they can find. Primates eating primates. It's hard out there for a chimp, and they'll actually share the spoils of their meal with each other. It's an example of actually they will share meat, but generally, it's alpha that gets the first take. But cool discovery by a primatologist named Jill Preetz and her crew and her researchers out of Senegal in West Africa. She found that female chimps were not only hunting, they were taking sticks and stripping off the leaves, using tools to find a galago or a bush baby and stab them and then eat them and share them with their young. So not only because they're like, oh yeah, well the male chimps, they're the ones that hunt. It's like females not only hunt, they will use tools to hunt bush babies. So yeah, they're not vegan. But they do eat they love fruit and males. One of the videos I made was about how males will give pieces of fruit to females that have sexual swellings, a little transactional, little Valentine's Day, here's a little something, give me a little nookie.
I like when people call me and then I hang up the phone and then, I'll just call right back.
That's usually what that means, right? You want to talk. It's a little game you play.
I wish that I had another hour to do this, and please let me know. Send me an email after this is all done. You want to have another conversation about any topic? I'm down because I'm having a great deal of fun with this. I would love to keep going. I wish that I could. A couple more comments to finish. Tsunami said, "Don't all animals consume meat if given the chance, or rather, if necessary?"
Generally, yes. There's a lot of opportunists, and humans are like that too. Humans are opportunistic hunters. Like our ancestors weren't probably eating meat every day. It was the only days that you could kind of find it, But yeah, a lot of primates will do that. There are folivores that are mostly strictly leaf eaters, howler monkeys, colobus monkeys. They actually have stomachs that are built to eat mostly leaves, which are very hard to digest. That's why howler monkeys, I play the game Termite Mound or howler monkey because they spend the whole day digesting. But yeah, usually they are pretty opportunistic. The only primate that is pretty much carnivorous all the time is the tarsier. They're faunivores, or essentially insectivores. They eat nothing but insects.
Yeah, there's like video of deer. I don't remember if they eat chicks or not. But
it was
the turtles.
Yeah, they were eating something. I remember.
I remember seeing deer and horses and cattle eating things like squirrels and whatnot. So
yeah.
Then Thinking Monkey, and this is going to be the last one that I have to read, and then I have to close it up. Thinking Monkey says, offers £5 and says, missed the first hour. We'll have to watch from the beginning tomorrow. Very interesting topic. It was indeed. And Natalia, this was a great deal of fun. And
thank you.
Please invite yourself onto the show anytime you want to have another topic to discuss, and I'll be happy to set that up.
Yeah, I would love that. And SJ, it was so nice to meet you too, and all your animals.
Yeah.
And Peter.
Oh, you haven't met all of them.
What's the name?
How many snakes? Sorry.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Oh, if you go to Natalia Reagan, that is my YouTube channel. It's just my name. Instagram, Natalia13 Reagan. I have a podcast coming out called Science for Social Change, which I'd love to have you guys on. And it's about how science and the people doing the science are changing the world for the better.
Oh, I would absolutely love to be on that. Please take that as please let me know that that was a sincere and serious invitation, because I'm so
absolutely. One last thing. I'm hosting trips. I'm going to Madagascar in May, and I have still some spots left. So if anybody loves primates, want to go to Madagascar and check out some leaping lemurs, colorful chameleons with a primatologist, let me know. I think you have the link. So this has been so much fun.
Would it be possible to schedule the flight so that we because it's Madagascar, that we could just hop through Kenya or South Africa on the way to or back?
Absolutely. You get your own flight. So like the trip is all curated. It's the itinerary set. I added even more lemur time, and I'm going to be doing that too because my best friend does MSF and she'll be on mission somewhere in Africa, and I'm going to go visit her.
Arn and I are doing a cruise where we're presenting in the Caribbean. Yeah.
When?
It's sometime this spring. I would have to look. I'll get you the link. I'll be able to. I'll put it down below. I don't have it on hand, but yeah, we're both presenting on the Free Thought cruise on Norwegian Cruise Lines.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know we have all the TAM. I presented at TAM. I did a Bigfoot show, and so I talked about Bigfoot at TAM 13.
I missed that. We went. We didn't make every year because we were dirt poor, but we've been like every other one, and it was such a good time.
That. Well,
all right, gonna have to let you go, Natalia. We've got all the links. All of Natalia's links are below in the description. Please check her out, and I'll give you another minute, or you get the last minute, Natalia. Sell yourself in this last minute before we go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. If you love primates and comedy, come check me out. I do tons of stand-up shows. I've got one this Friday called Horror Nerd at the Hollywood Improv. I'll be performing at Joyce's Toluca Lake Pre-K. I actually opened for an orgy earlier this year, and now I'm closing out at a pre-K. I think all orgies lead to pre-K, so there you have it. And if you want to come to Madagascar and chase lemurs with me, you should come. You can check out the link in this chat. And lastly, come check out my science comedy videos on Instagram, TikTok at Behold Natalia, Instagram at Natalia13 Reagan, and keep evolving because you have no choice. And just be good to each other. And thank you for having me. Happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you kindly. Peter, take it.